It's been the only way I know is you have to align your compensation strategy to your talent strategy, and your talent strategy is aligned to your business strategy, and your business strategy is going to have, those areas of indexing as to what's important to them. When you're managing 70% of the cost of the company, you are going to get squeezed. And figuring out how can you be more efficient? What's the ROI on these different levers that you have? And you're always justifying. And of course, a good CFO is always going to be asking you to justify.
Welcome back to the HR Heretics podcast, where we get into the real talk of company construction. These are the conversations that happen between founders, chief people officers, and board members behind closed doors.
We're heretics in this industry because there's a culture of silence around important business topics, especially as it relates to people. But on the show, we tell the truth and expect the same from our guests.
Today's episode is with Jen Trzepacz, also known as JT. So I've known JT Nolan since I started at Yahoo, which was, I think, 2006 or 2007. And she was just kind of known as a badass. I started off on the sales side and the HR group in a different building, and JT's reputation kind of preceded her to the point where I was kind of like intimidated. I was 30 years old. I was trying to figure it out. And she's just had this awesome reputation, just business oriented, just a boss. And then she went over to EA, onto Salesforce, and then had stints at Living Social, Lithium Technologies, Rocket Fuel. And these were not easy gigs. I mean, she's lived through the best and the grind of it. She then went to Wildcat Ventures as an operating partner. And now she's back in the operating seat at SymphonyAI for the past 2 years. And it was just so great to connect with her and talk about her journey.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to make a joke about you working at Yahoo in 2006. But beyond that, I found JT to be super real and just like a total badass. Like, that's the best way I can describe JT and why our audience is going to love listening to her. I loved her takes on people ops, and I also loved her take specifically on why chief people officers would make great CEOs.
Yeah. She has such a great vibe, and she can just lean into hard stuff and also have a great outlook, attitude about it all. She's someone you actually want to work with and talk with. Second of all, I'd love to hear about Yahoo in 2006. There's a lot of us that still bleed purple, Nolan, forever. So you better watch out. Better watch out with that one.
Tobin, JT, like, I know a few of you guys, and like, I can poke and prod because of the relationship. But I mean, it's still Yahoo. Like, it's anyway.
AOL, Schmaol. Yahoo's the best.
Yeah.
Always will
be.
So
Yahoo. If you have a Yahoo email address, by the way, it's thought of as a negative -6. So like, get a Gmail. Anyways,
the new green circle. The new green circle.
I was thinking it. You said it. Okay, so put that on Kelly, everybody. Ultimately, like, you're exactly right. Not only is she able to get into the real stuff, she's able to do it with this affability, this like very approachable personality. Like, we were cracking jokes the whole time. And it seems that she has that relationship with her current executive team, because apparently her CFO was like walking across her office, like making faces at her while she was on the podcast, knowing that she was on the podcast. I think that says a lot about who she is and the types of people that she works with.
And then like 6 minutes later, just to stick with the 6 motif here, she was like, oh, my legal officer's walking by and making a face in the window. It's great. She's fantastic.
It's so good. So you guys are going to love this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, share with your friends and enemies. And without further ado, here's JT.
JT, thank you so much for being with us today. We're so excited to dig in, prod, poke, pull you, hear some good opinions, hear some good stories, and just have some real talk around this role. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So JT, I want to dive in on mistakes. Kelly and I have
we're going there already. We're going there. Okay.
Right off the bat.
We promised our listeners.
Okay.
We made a lot.
That's what they want to know. So let's talk about your biggest fuck ups, or, the ones that like you've been a part of on the inside, and things that have gone wrong that you've learned from.
This is the podcast that I wanted to listen to at 28 when I started.
I wish I had this podcast when I was younger, for sure. And I was going, oh my God, I had mess ups or fuck ups at every company. Like there's always a new one. The biggest one, though, that is always going to be memorable for me is when I was working on the employee merit file, and you know where this is going, right? And I wanted to send it to the executive team in Cambridge, and it said Cambridge executives, and instead I sent it to Cambridge everyone. And so everybody got the merit file of all the increases for the entire company. And it was not password protected. And at that time, password protection, this is a while ago because I am dating myself a little, and that, when you type in something, you had to type in it does populate, but it was not that clear that, oh, you need to send it to executives, like you didn't have selection. So anyway, I sent it to everybody. I then realized my mistake, and was like, oh no, uh-oh. So I reached out to my boss and I let her know and said, I understand if you need to terminate me. And I totally take responsibility for this careless error of not paying attention. And she said, well, we were thinking about being more transparent on things. You have definitely gone to the extreme, and we're going to have to own this. And you're going to need to talk to the leaders and own this one. So I called a leadership meeting to apologize, and but then also talked about how this is a great opportunity to really talk to people about equity and their value and decisions and how the decisions were made, and creating more of an opportunity to share how things get decided upon. They were not happy, of course, with it, but they were forgiving. And everybody makes mistakes, right? And it was an innocent mistake, but it was a big oopsie, right? And I didn't get terminated. I will never, ever send a file again without it password protected and double checking and, and all that kind of stuff. Because you always have that one time where you do that. And then you'll learn from that. And I've had something happen recently with one of my employees, and I was like, oh, I was there when I was your age and did that.
JT, were these the infamous merit files of Yahoo with the spawning, and by the time you were done, you had 50 files from one, couldn't get them back together?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you didn't have a good system, and so tech has really helped with that too, where you have an application now that you can do all the distribution of all that stuff. So yeah, it wasn't at Yahoo, but it was a close second. I'll just say that. And
I just remember those, right?
Oh yeah.
Being so young, and my hands were like shaky, and you're pressing the button, and you're like, I'm going to press the button. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And you are always double checking. And I always remember, even when I have to send an email that could be a little contentious and everything, I'm like, okay, I got to read over this again and read over it again, because it's going to get forwarded. Someone's going to interpret it. If it went into a lawyer's hands at some point in time, how does that look? So you're always being really mindful of all the things that you got to send out, in particular from HR, because it's usually sensitive information.
I have legit email anxiety, and that is I think you just actually increased my email anxiety, unfortunately, after that story. That is crazy. It also, though, sounds like you spun it incredibly well. Like that's like marketing to the extreme. And so did the company go more transparent with comp after that mistake?
They did, but not to the degree that I, initiated. But there was a lot more transparency. There was a lot more training. I have to give my manager credit, because that put her in a situation where she had to reveal that to the board and all that kind of stuff as well. And luckily we were only in US, so we didn't have GDPR at the time, and you don't have to report things relative to, oh, we just had a security breach or a data breach on your private information and all that good stuff. So I think I was lucky. Today, the ramifications can be a lot more impactful, and there's a lot of legalese and compliance related stuff now that, especially on a global team, that you didn't have before. But marketing is really important. Transparency is really important. I think that you got to just look at the positive intent behind it, and kind of make lemonade out of lemons.
I mean, the irony is you, through, an error, accelerated what is actually table stakes and it is expected today around transparency.
It is. It wasn't expected then, so it was a little bit ahead of its time. Maybe on the sales side, it would be something that you would be more transparent around because of the sales comp and leaderboards and things of that nature, but not for an engineering-centric organization. That was a bit of a no-no. But I have a tendency to step into these things where transparency starts to become more, or directness becomes more of a topic because of my mistake. So it's not intended, but I had this other example where I was at Living Social, and we had a software that we purchased. Our average age was 24. We had 3,000 employees on a global basis, and I purchased a piece of tech that was badging, and badging was a new thing. And it was for, peer-to-peer recognition. And we got, there was an undercurrent of badging that was going on in the company that was, let's just say, provocative badging that people could potentially get. Now, when you're 24 years old, the place to meet people is at work. And so there was a kind of like a dating thing. I'm probably going to get this beeped out, but there was a vajazzle badge. There was the, how many can you, execs can you do kind of thing. Like it was, and I had no idea. I was clueless. I was like, oh, we got so much engagement and bragging about all these engagement metrics on this badging system. And then everyone's like, you do know what's going on. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what some of these badges meant. That got surfaced. And one is that for the transparency piece was that I was glad that somebody actually gave me the heads up that this was going on. But it was more of the embracing, like that they were not only embracing work, but they were embracing having fun and poking at each other. Granted, it was maybe a little sexual in nature that there's an appropriate and inappropriateness here, but that we were able to have a dialogue around helping people be more mature and professional as 24-year-olds who are just recently out of school, and that this is not school anymore. And so, creating programs around professionalism, maturity, code of conduct, and not code of conduct of like the legal side, just more of the human side, about respectful workplace and all that kind of stuff that kind of transpired from that little snafu.
Versus being punitive, which you guys could have been punitive. You could have fired people for that. And I love the approach of like, let's help these people versus firing them. And I think so many people lean into we need to terminate somebody versus actually, could this be a learning opportunity for them and the rest of the company?
It's so funny too. I mean, that reputation probably stuck with them, right? They're 24 years old. This might be their first experience with HR. When they're 44, they might have a great impression only because of that 20 years prior.
Yeah. You know what, Kelly? I think that's great. And I still get pings from a lot of those employees. Just about, hey, we're now hiring a head of HR. Are you interested? You kind of thing. Like that. So there is some lasting memory around that. Yeah.
These reputations, they stick with you, especially if you kind of run in the same circles. I think half of my advising gigs the past 8 years have been former baby employees, 20 years prior. They're like, I remember working with you. Can you help us? Because you're the only HR person we could stomach. Right. So it's a big deal.
It is. I didn't think of it that way, the ripple effect that you have. But it does come back, and hey, it was, I think for employees, especially in venture and in technology, there isn't, there's mixed reviews on human resources and its effectiveness and the impact that it has. And so to make that difference, I think is helpful, because then it feeds and fuels into the ecosystem eventually.
JT, you had mentioned transparency around comp, and I'm actually curious how you're thinking around comp transparency today at Symphony.
We post the 0 to 999,000 for our transparency. All right, I had to say that because that's what everybody's doing right now around that. I think what we're doing is creating more transparency around our methodology, around our compensation approach to things, around our composite or cohort that we're measuring ourselves against, around our philosophy on 50th percentile, 65th percentile, top talent. So we're creating more transparency around the process, the methodologies, the data sources, in order to educate managers and employees. We are not to the extent of publishing salaries or sending out merit files the JT way, but we're also creating transparency with compensation statements that can help with people understanding what their full compensation package is for themselves. And get more educated around that. So that's been our approach. And in particular, we have to be careful because we are a very heavy European organization, that GDPR is a big component of that we have to be compliant and mindful of.
Totally. It seems like comp is a work in progress everywhere. Like, where do you want to be as it relates to comp? Like, everyone's always like working on it. But like, where do you want to be end state with comp?
I don't want to be talking about it anymore. That's the end state, like where that's not what we're talking about. And it is, of course, obviously the biggest piece on the P&L. Your headcount is, especially in tech. Then there's your benefits. That is a big piece of it. Your equity comp is a big piece of that. So from a financial perspective, we have to be mindful and deliberate and diligent and strategic with all of these triggers and levers that make up probably 70% of your P&L. So it is extremely important to have a really good handle around. But yeah, it's one where I really just want it to go away. And when it goes away, you can focus on other things. But when people are not feeling valued, that's when all the chatter and the complaints are coming and all that kind of stuff. And I wish there was a way we could make it all go away. That's called like being really rich and not having to worry about any shareholders or, your next earnings call and all that kind of stuff. That's the ideal world. But I think that if we're able to get them to feel valued in other ways, then the chatter stops around the comp. And so, focusing on some of those things around your purpose, your relationship, your flexibility, the things that are important to an individual employee, figuring out those levers and focusing on those outside of the comp piece can help with, stopping that chatter.
And being transparent just about where you guys do pay. And, are you talking to candidates about that in the interview process and being clear with candidates about where you pay from a percentile standpoint?
I'm not sure if our recruiting team goes to that degree of transparency. I do know that when people get into the organization, we do pay. We do share that type of information. Just to be transparent, we're at the 50th percentile when it comes to positions that are G&A oriented. We pay at the 65th percentile for those positions that are of strategic nature to us. And that's more around our product. And we'll pay at the 70th percentile for AI oriented folks. And then at the sales level, we're going to pay at the 50th for certain things, but we're going to pay top dollar on the sales commission side, so that, and that's what triggers them to, do good work is that they can make money off their sales comp plan. So it just depends on your strategy and what you're valuing, and then what you can afford.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
Hey everybody, your co-host Nolan here. High performance and great culture should never be at odds. They're better together. With Lattice People Management Platform, companies efficiently run people programs that create enviable cultures where employees want to do their best work. Serving thousands of customers of all sizes globally, Lattice helps everyone work better together. Learn why companies from Slack to the LA Dodgers choose Lattice. Visit lattice.com/HRheretics today. That's Lattice, LATTICE.com. Have you ever had a negative experience hiring an executive? I certainly did at Carta and DoorDash, and that's why I started Continuum, the modern AI-powered executive search firm. Continuum connects executives and senior operators to venture-backed tech companies for fractional and full-time roles. You could post any executive-level role to Continuum's marketplace and search through our database of world-class experienced leaders. Continuum will intelligently surface your opportunity to relevant operators. They'll express interest and show up in your inbox. It's like magic. There's no platform fee or hidden cost. You only pay the person you hire, and you can cancel at any time. If you're thinking about hiring an exec in the middle of a search right now, or don't know how to solve a problem, I get it. Scaling is hard. Companies like Athletic Greens, Weights and Biases, Masari, and more than 100 other tech companies have turned to Continuum for help solving their people ops, go-to-market, engineering, and finance challenges. So check out Continuum in the description below. Ping me on LinkedIn if you have any questions, or head to joincontinuum.com.
JT, kind of a spicy question on that. Just having lived in the seat the last, 2.5 years and driven a lot of change with comp, it's arguably easier to do that in a great market, right? Money is flowing, and our seats are kind of in the intersection between the shareholders, the comp committee, right? The board, the employees. Have you felt squeezed and a little bit tight as far as in this market? How have you handled that?
Yeah, I mean, that's when you have to make hard trade-offs. And you have to understand, like, what is our real competitive differentiation? And we got to make sure we have the best talent for that. And it really, for us, it all starts with products. So our product and engineering talent is by far the value creation of this company. And therefore, we're always going to fight for that. And then we have to be creative with all the others when you have to make those hard trade-offs. So yes, but I'm always feeling pinched. If it's not on the comp philosophy around the base and bonus, it's about benefits, or it is about the equity. When you're managing 70% of the cost of the company, you are going to get squeezed. And figuring out how can you be more efficient? What's the ROI on these different levers that you have? And you're always justifying. And of course, a good CFO is always going to be asking you to justify. I think that's actually business as usual. It's not actually spicy. You've got to tolerate that, and you need to have confidence and comfort in always leading through, figuring out what's best. And the other thing is finding out from the employees, like, what is more important to you? Because I'm going to have to advocate and fight for some of these things, and I need to know what those things are.
Yep, totally. I love the courage to not do the peanut butter approach, to say we pay at 60th percentile across the entire company. And I love the indexing on the value creators being the top of the food chain as it relates to how much we pay. I actually don't think many companies do that. And I'm curious, have you been doing that for a while, or is that a new practice that you've instituted?
It's been the only way I know is you have to align your compensation strategy to your talent strategy, and your talent strategy is aligned to your business strategy, and your business strategy is going to have, those areas of indexing as to what's important to them. And it can even get to a point of, like at venture, we would say, okay, where do we spend our time? Well, we spend our time where we have our biggest investment, because that's going to get us the highest ROI. And even so, the ones that were at 1% ownership, they got the guidebook. They didn't get the personal attention. So you do have to prioritize. Just the way I've known is you just got to prioritize based on what the strategy is and the focus is for the company.
There is nuance, and that's okay.
There is. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You have argued that people leaders are great candidates to become CEOs in the future. And that's not a very popular narrative in tech. We're seen as soft, and the function rarely gets credit for, stuff that GMs get credit for. Can you take us through that argument and why you feel like people leaders should be CEOs?
Oh, yeah. I feel very strongly about that one. Well, as you know, it all starts with we have a funnel that we have to manage to attract people into the organization, and we have to create an employment brand. So there's being the CMO, there is being the chief revenue officer, in that we have to manage our funnel and do conversion of folks that we're interested in bringing into the organization. And then once they become an employee, you're now the chief customer success officer, where you need to seed and grow that individual or that account into something that is blossoming and is utilizing that is being utilized and is utilizing all that's at their disposal. And so there is also, the chief customer officer is another thing. And then you've got your chief technology officer, and you have a tech stack that you have to manage, and you make your own technical decisions, and you're spending millions of dollars on technology. So you have to deal with, that managing that tech stack and the delivery to your customer base, which, by the way, you need to have consumerism in the workplace for an employee experience. So all of these apps need to be just like this, and, available on your mobile phone, and that you can click on the app and get everything that you need. And now we have ChatGPT as well. So you need to have Gen AI into your platform of, like, now I just need to type into my intranet, what's my dental coverage? And this says, hi, Jason, your dental coverage is Guardian, and you have blah, 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 blah. So, really thinking through strategically as to that employee experience. And then, as I mentioned before, the 70% of a technology company's budget is based on the decisions and the design that I'm making around our compensation philosophy, our benefits discussions that we're having on a global basis, and selecting those vendors and what benefits we have to offer, and our equity design. And so why would you not want to pick somebody else but the head of HR? Now you do need to have some skills beyond just saying, oh, that's transferable. There's strong business acumen that you need to have as well, and truly understanding the space that you're in, or the vertical you're in, or that industry that you're in, to understand that whole entire ecosystem. But who would know all of those things better than the head of HR?
I think it's a great point. Where do you think we are on that journey, JT? Because straight up, I don't see a lot of them, and I'm wondering,
not happening.
And maybe said differently, why aren't there more chief people officers that haven't converted to CEOs?
I wish I could answer that. I mean, it's a legacy, right? It's a undercurrent. It's just a philosophy of human resources that it's like just a brand that's out there that I think is really holding it back. When I talk to executives, venture folks, they're like, not for you, JT, but for everybody else, right? And it's like, no, everybody else is actually capable of doing these things. But there is definitely, I guess, a tarnished assumption around human resources. And I was actually interviewing a candidate for a very senior position. And I was talking to them about how his strategy, I felt, was it was very services oriented, which is fine for value creation and growth. But I mean, fine for growth, but not for value creation, because multiples on the value would be lower, because services revenue is not as valued as software revenue. I mean, this is basic 101 stuff that HR folks should know. But he's like, I've never had a conversation like this with the head of HR. I thought we're going to just talk about the benefits and, what kind of parties you plan, kind of thing. So it's like, just another one who's gone through their entire career thinking of HR in that way. That's one, I don't know how to break that. I would just like to see HR people more get onto boards, and be selected for board positions. And I do see that a little bit more frequently, but maybe that's an easier place to start. Then they get exposure there, and then they can be considered for CEOs down the line. But yeah, I truly believe in it. And I definitely know COO, hands down, we can nail that. CEO, there is a component about strategy, about thinking big, about understanding your market, understanding your moat, your competitive set, and all that kind of stuff. So there is strong business acumen that you really do need to have as a CEO. But some of that is about surrounding yourself with the right talent that has all that expertise. And all you have to do is ask the right questions. You don't have to have all the right answers. There's other people you can surround yourself with to have those. And that's what I've seen great CEOs do. And so I think HR is well equipped to handle that. Now, I'm not going to say every HR person, but definitely there's a subset that are quite capable.
And JT, if I know you well, you're expecting your people leadership team to be of that mold. What are you doing? What advice would you give even to founders? And how do you make them?
I think that there has to be a willingness to learn, a willingness to fail, a willingness to be curious, and I would say don't put people first. And I hate saying that, but don't put the business first, which has people in it. Okay. And that is a little bit hard for HR people to do, because they index right immediately to the people. And I get there eventually, but I always start with the business, and then talk about the consequences that has for the people.
It's such a contrarian thing to say, but it is 100% true that if the business isn't working, then we can't actually take care of the people. Yet I never hear it. And I'm curious as to why that is.
You're asking these hard questions because this is the only way I know. You have to start there, right? Where else do you start?
JT, remember when the chief people officer or Nolan job description, the first sentence always used to be, this person owns our culture, right? This person owns our feelings. I think that we have created an expectation, to your point, and a mindset that's what this job is. And it's kind of shifted under our noses very quickly. And I'm not sure we're catching up fast enough.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, Kelly. I think, what went through my head is, and we're the chief medical officer during COVID, and we're the chief culture officer. And when I see those, I'm like, no, everyone's responsible for the culture. Everyone is responsible for that. We're going through a return to office, an R2O initiative. And I started out saying, this is not an HR initiative. This is actually leadership that is enabled to make the decisions in regards to the things we're expecting from you. This is all you. It's not me. It's not HR. It's not you are the ones who are going to create the tone. You're going to set the level of accountability. You're going to be the ones who can make the decisions around this program. You own this, not me. I am just enabling this and helping through that. So, but you have to be so deliberate with not taking it on yourself, because you always get put back in the box. And even Sanjay, our CEO, was saying, JT, this is yours. I'm like, nope, not mine. Not mine. This is the whole entire company.
Ours.
This is a business thing. This is, yeah, exactly, Nolan. It's ours. But you have to remind them. So I view us as personal trainers. Like, we have to help them build their muscle, and build their rhythm, build their style and their form. And then you need to let them do their thing, but you got to come back in every once in a while to remind them, like, hey, your form's off. And I think about that with like Tom Brady, New England Patriot, superstar that is, I'm not even going to mention Tampa Bay, go Boston. But like Tom, he is the most elite athlete, and still every day he sought coaching and trying to fine tune and perfect his craft. And that's what we need to encourage that with our leaders and employees, is that it's not a bad thing to ask for help or to get the training and to get the support to fine tune your craft. Even if you're at the top of your game, you still need that assistance and that help. And so that's what, that's where some of this heart stuff comes into, and the nurturing piece. And that's when I get the gloss overs from a lot of the CEOs who are like, oh, she's talking like human stuff, cannot compute. I need to get back to my financials and EBITDA and revenue. This is too human for us. But humans are messy. Humans are what's creating the value in the company, and humans are creating the zeros and ones that are making you money. So, you gotta tolerate some of it.
They are handcuffed together for sure.
They are. That's for sure. Yep.
How do you think about community? And the CPO job is a very lonely place. Some people have said it's the worst, best job in tech. How do you think about building your community, and who are the people that you lean on?
I lean on Cabernet Sauvignon.
I'm a bourbon person myself.
Oh, I like bourbon too.
Yes, and
so I have to say I'm not good at this. I wish that I leaned on my community more. But when I have, they have been so amazing. And that's the power of the network is, Kelly, when we were talking earlier about somebody that you worked with 20 years ago, and all of a sudden they're reaching out to you. Well, like, there's times where I need to reach out to somebody and they're like, oh my God, I remember you. Of course I'll help you. That's the good human nature in all of us, I think, is that we do want to help people that we have relationships with or respect. The CPO role is definitely lonely, for sure. And I'm glad I have a husband that is very receptive to hearing my stories and all that good stuff. And sometimes he comes up with like, oh, so tell me what went on this week. I'm interested in hearing more.
We do that at my house too.
Yeah. So we have some fun there. I think that the network is one where we help each other, but there's also like this like competition in some ways. And I hate to say it, like, you want to help, but like, you're like, okay, well, what are you doing? And like, is that good? Oh, that's good for you. Like, oh shit, I'm not doing that. Am I bad? Is that like, am I behind the times? So like, I don't want to feel worse when I talk to my network, especially I have enough of that in the office, right?
The FOMO in the community is real.
Yeah, the FOMO is real. It absolutely is. I'm a bad example of it, but I do know that when I reach out to folks, the level of engagement and support is real. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I believe that when people do reach out to me, that I try and do the same for them as well. So that's all you can do.
JT, the loneliness of this job is real. How important is the relationship with your founder to your own kind of sense of, camaraderie? And when it goes off the rails, which, let's be honest, it always does at some point, it goes up and down. How do you get it back?
Well, I may have a lonely job, but he has a lonelier job. Okay. And I think that you have to build trust in order to share some vulnerability and some humbleness and honesty. That takes some time. And so eventually we can get to a place, and I've gotten there with everyone, some just a different dance, stepping on toes, maybe a little bit longer and all that kind of stuff. But we eventually figure those things out. You can tell when there's a bad day, they're in a lonely place too. But there also has to be trust because, if they're sharing things, can you go to the board? Will you go to the board with that? How vulnerable can I demonstrate to you? Because you might be asked someday and then you have to reveal. Or what are you going to reveal? So it's a balance. It's a personal choice, but flow is really important. We don't have to be best of friends. We don't have to be going to each other's house for dinners and our husbands and wives getting together and all that kind of stuff. But flow around the business and transparency around the business is really important and very critical to be successful in your job.
Has there been a case where the relationship between you and the CEO didn't work? And how did you know?
I knew 2 weeks into a job, I was like, values were not aligned. But I also felt like, wait, I got to give this a chance. Like, I have to see there's a purpose here. Maybe I have to learn something new from this. And I stayed for 3 years at that job.
Holy shit, JT.
I did. But it was tough. I wish that we could have hugged each other before I left, and it didn't work out that way. Time passes. You realize there was a lot of really good things that came out of that relationship. There was a lot of things that together we accomplished, even if it was not a fulfilling relationship at a personal level where you felt the things that you needed. And not that we laugh and connect or anything like that now or anything like that, but there is just more, it's settled. Time passes and it's settled. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have listened to my gut. I'm going to tell you that I made this commitment. I should stick with this commitment. But life is too short to do those things now. So you just got to, so in that case, I was not courageous enough to make that change.
What have you learned, JT, or changed maybe within a 10-year span, right? SymphonyAI versus maybe a company 10 years ago, as far as how you interview a company to decide when to join them? Have you learned any tidbits for the audience on that? Because it's a thing.
Yeah, that's so funny because there was this one time I was interviewing, and this the CEO guy said, said to me, "Man, you're really grilling me about like my style and my relationship." And he's like, "Are you coming off of a bad relationship?" And I was just coming off of that relationship that I was just sharing with you guys. I'm like, "Oh my God, is it that obvious?"
I'm over rotating.
I over rotated, yes. but it's really important. And in particular, when you become the head of HR, that flow, that trust, that camaraderie, those values are extremely important. And um, uh, and there are also things that you have to make your list of. What am I looking for out of the next assignment here? And for me, going back from venture into an operating role, it was I wanted to get in. I wanted an IPO, and I wanted the big leagues of a leader who made big decisions, was extremely strategic. And no disrespect to Silicon Valley, but I wanted somebody who was a mature adult versus, a younger product entrepreneur who was backed by amazing venture, but didn't really know how to strategically be thinking bigger and had many people around them to help. But I wanted that gravitas. So sometimes you have to think about what are the things that you're looking for and that you're missing from your toolkit that you want to get that experience around. And then you can tailor your search and your interview questions around those things.
I love it. I love it. So many people just take the companies as they're coming versus applying those types of filters, being thoughtful.
Yeah.
Have you done any work trials with companies to try and de-risk?
Well, Nolan, now that's a hip thing to do, but back in my day, nope. I didn't do those things. I guess maybe you could say that in some ways, because if you look at my experience, yes, I have amazing brands, but I've also moved on. I have moved on to a variety of different companies to learn different industries, to learn different life cycles. So always a creature of learning and wanting to build out my skill set and experiences and my network in different industries and all that stuff. So in some ways, I guess you can say I was doing it, but not officially.
So I have a strong take that the future of executive interviewing is going to be trying before you buy, because it's best for both sides.
Right. Or you work with the same person for 20 years, right? We see pairs kind of going from company to company because they know.
Right. I mean, I have to admit, I have a great crew that has been with me at Salesforce, Living Social, Rocket Fuel, Lithium. These are all the companies, Electronic Arts. They're all here. And I'm honored that they actually want to continue working with me, because I definitely have given them, a run for their money around some of these companies. But that is really helpful, is to have the people that you can work with. So I can say I've worked with them for 20 years, just not at the same company.
For sure.
But we have worked together.
Yep. We have the same thing here, Pendo.
That's amazing. Okay, we're going to get to the questions that we ask everybody. I actually want to ask you, who was your best hire and why?
Who's my best hire? I have my CFO right now who's doing a dance outside my office. He's
incredible.
I'm sorry. And he's in the corner there. He's going like this, and he's going by like this.
He's the best hire.
Yeah. Okay. Who's my best hire? I can't say a person, and I can't say a position. It doesn't resonate for me to say, oh, this immediate thing. It's more of I have hired rock stars in positions and just rock stars in general. And then sometimes those rock stars don't work out for the company, but they're still rock stars. I think about the cultural fit. I think about their resilience. I think about what they need to learn. And am I going to be able to provide that from them based on what I know of them and what they've developed already? So it's like a little puzzle that you're trying to put together as to all those things. So, yeah.
What's your secret weapon in the candidate experience? There's something around Jeeps that we heard of that you used to do.
Oh my God, yes. I don't know, Kel, if you remember that, but that was, and we had like the bus with the big brain. Like we were
the purple couches outside.
I actually don't know about this, so please educate me.
That was a good life.
Much fun.
Good life.
Yeah. Yahoo. That was great. That was great training ground for a lot of things. Libby Sartain did an amazing job.
And what a community that's still out there.
It is. It's a very strong community.
So there's something around candidate experience or recruiting and Jeeps. Like, what is the deal with the Jeeps thing?
The Jeeps was just like, all right, if you're going to, now Jeeps are more expensive these days, but if you were to do a $15,000 sign on, why not offer them a Jeep? Because that's unique and different instead of $15,000.
Holy shit.
Right? That's all it was.
I don't know when they were 15 grand. I've only owned Jeeps since I was 16.
What are we talking? Are they used? Is this like a
Compass?
lease?
No, like this was
The ones at Toys R Us at the kids' drive.
I know the Jeeps are now really expensive. Like that's a nice sign-on bonus for sure.
I'm ready to sell mine.
Like my friend that works at Tesla, she got a Tesla as a sign-on bonus, right? So I think that you're involved in the product. Two, what a great story to share. So there's always creative ways for creating marketing campaigns that go viral. And I remember when I got recruited for Yahoo, they flew me out and they knew that I liked hiking. And when they flew me out, they said, "Oh, you and your husband can go and stay at the Ahwahnee or the Albany, which is in Yosemite." Right? Like, hello, they just closed me at that right there. And my husband's like, "They're paying for us to stay here and have a dinner and overnight." I'm like, yeah, and it was all of like $500, right? That they spent, but it created such a memory for me and my husband of like, wow, they really want you. And they actually knew what you liked. The other memorable thing that I remember from the Yahoo days was something that a leader did for me where I was saying, "Oh, I'm going on a mountain biking trip in Downeyville and all that kind of stuff." "Oh, that's great." He called around to all the hotels to see where I was staying, found the hotel we were staying, and then comped us. Now the rooms were $70 a night. So it was like really cheap, but it was the thought that counted. And so those are the things that you create, like those moments of personalization.
You remember it 20 years later.
Personalization and surprise and delight are such powerful levers.
Surprise and delight was one of the values at Living Social. And that is one of the ones that I still use today. Yep. Personalization and surprise and delight. You got it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. What about your favorite interview question that gets you the best signal on candidates?
My favorite interview question to get the signal, I would say, all right, so I just got to tell you, the GC is now walking by. So there's this thing going on here. Okay. So,
I love that. You have a great team. If they can give you shit like that, I live for those moments.
I'm ready to come over.
This is what he's doing right now. So he's going like this. Right.
That's called the sprinkler.
Yeah, the sprinkler, right? And so usually when the guys dance and there's the CIO, the CFO, the CLO. So I'm expecting the CIO to come by shortly as well. And they know I'm recording. And that's the thing that is killing me, that they're doing this on purpose. But yeah, so
hazing is still fine in the workplace from where I stand.
Just no violence, just no violence.
Yeah, just like casual ribbing.
So the question of what do I get candidates on is, I don't think it's a specific question, but I like to ask questions that are about like in the range of things. So, are you in the range of like, are you more commercially oriented? Or are you more product oriented? Are you like, are you this? Or are you that? So I'm trying to narrow things down to get to a point where I'm truly understanding how, like, where they index, and obviously asking a little bit more questions as to why and what makes you think that and all that kind of stuff. But I think that when I'm narrowing it down, one of the questions that I do ask is, I give the reality as a symphony, and say, is this something that you can be successful in? And of course everybody's like, "Oh yeah. Like they might say, "Oh yeah, initially," but I put them on the spot of like, here is the realities of this. And I have had candidates say, "You know what? No, that's actually not for me." And I said, I that's right. I don't think it is actually for you. And they come to those own conclusions instead of me having to tell them that. So it's not one question. It's just like more of an approach to narrow things down, get them to a point where I can, share more about what we're about, to then let them reveal if they're leaning in or if this isn't for them.
Let candidates opt in or opt out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have found that a lot of the candidates, they appreciate the candidness. They appreciate the, that we're not selling, that, and like this, let's be real, like this is a real thing that's going on here. So like, if you're going to do it, you got to be like really in on this. So I think that is, it's not an aha, but it's definitely a signal. And also when I am like kind of telling them that they're not, this may not be the right thing for them and they're not getting it, that's also another signal, right?
Different, but helpful.
Different, but helpful. That's right.
It's important. It's important.
Yeah.
So Jen, we're going to put a wrap on this thing, but is there anything else that you want to shout out or discuss before we put a bow on it?
No, I just think, okay, yes, chief people officers are going to have to deal with AI. It is here. It is here to stay. It is going to be disruptive, and you have to embrace it. It is actually something that can help human resources from the standpoint of right now, in particular with the vision of HR being so administrative and compliance oriented and all those kind of things. Of when you are leveraging AI to help you with automation or with data aggregation and signals, it is giving you more time to think, to be more relational. And so I actually think AI will help elevate human resources to bring the human back into it a bit more, so that is the competitive differentiation, is your relationship versus just all the data and the compliance piece. So embrace AI, not because I have it in our name, Symphony has it in their name, but it is here to stay. We've got to figure it out. And the cycle times of going from 1, 3, and 5 years around planning, it's now 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, and even 1 year is to me a long time when we're thinking about the innovation that is occurring on a regular basis around this all. So that would be some of my parting words is to my colleagues out there, is get on with it and embrace it. It's beautiful tech that can really make an amazing experience for employees and to elevate our games.
You have to be digitally native. And today's thing is AI, and we have to use it every day. I'm actually curious, JT, how are you using AI, and are you using it every day?
I use it every day. I am with ChatGPT and a lot of the different plugins, like when we're consolidating 27 employee handbooks into one unified handbook. ChatGPT does it for us instead of an intern that we have to pay for all summer, right? It is for quick connections around benchmarks or approaches to things. It helps you with getting you a draft that you could spend a couple of hours on, that it gets you a draft in a couple of minutes to just get your thoughts down. We do have it embedded in some of our applications that we have in our tech stack as well. We also are doing a program called Everyone Can AI. So this is not for engineers. This is for everybody at the company. We all have to be eating, breathing, drinking. DNA is AI. And so all of us have to figure out how to incorporate this into our job. And I just started a thing in HR called Hack Your Job. It's not a hackathon, it's Hack Your Job. And how are you hacking your job with AI so that you can do more strategic relational things than dealing with spreadsheets or reporting and or that can do an analysis that gives you, again, the starting point. You still have to own the data, own your own deliverable and that narrative, but can we increase our velocity and our value add in a different way?
A common reaction, right, is AI is going to replace me. AI is going to take my job. You're talking about something quite different, actually making it more enjoyable and easier.
Yeah, and will there be jobs eliminated? Sure, but there's also going to be jobs created. The World Economic Forum has said 85 million jobs are going to be impacted by AI, but 95 million are going to be created because of it. And those jobs, we don't even know what they are yet that are going to be out there. So that's why everyone at Can AI, let's all embrace it. In particular, human resources, you got to stay with it, not only for your function, but also for your workforce strategy.
For sure.
I love that, JT. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.